Let's good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Can we have a obviously streaming issue, so I'll skip the intro and welcome. Can we skip the intro, please? My name is Mark Moloney. I'm the Managing Director of Professional Beauty, and I'm really proud and delighted to host our World Spa and Wellness Conference in partnership with World Wellness Weekend and Jean-Guy de Gabriac, who's put in an awful lot of work behind the scenes in getting many of the sessions that you have witnessed yesterday, today, and tomorrow. There's a lot of noise out there, and we hope to cut through that noise. And we've got today an excellent panel. Kilian Fischer, who's the International Public Policy Advisor of URSA. And Kilian is based in the beautiful County Kildare in Ireland. Welcome, Kilian. And then we have an ex-Olympic champion in wrestling. So I'm not going to argue with him. He's based in Aix-en-Provence in France. And I am told that Christophe Anderson is Mr. Fitness in France, founded fitness, or the concept of fitness clubs as we know them in France. Many years ago, almost 40 years ago. And Christophe is the CEO and founder of Group Planet Fitness. And he now has 2,500 clubs around the world. And of course, my co-chair, Jean-Guy de Gabriac of Tip Touch and the World Wellness Weekend. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you. I should say before we get into this, a couple of housekeeping points. Firstly, thank you to our partners, Biologique Research and Lemmy, and our partner for today's session, Matrix. I should also say that we are broadcasting across numerous channels across the world through Facebook, YouTube, and other channels. So if you're viewing on this, welcome. If you want to ask questions, please register. Go to professionalbeauty.co.uk. Register, it's no cost, and then you'll be allowed into the room, and we will be taking questions at the end subject to time. So Jean-Guy and I will be doing that. Right, first question, really. Kilian, what have been the most decisive actions that URSA has undertaken these couple of last months to prove the importance of fitness club reopening as fast as possible? Especially in the USA, but what have you been doing basically to push the industry forward?
Morning, Mark, and good morning to everyone. So if I just mention quick 15 seconds for those not aware who URSA is, it's actually the global trade association for all types of sport, fitness, aquatic facilities across the world. The headquarters is based in the US. As Mark said, I'm physically based actually in Ireland, and I'm responsible for anything to do with public policy really outside the US, but I have some involvement there as well. So what have we actually been doing since clubs really started closing down around week 1, which was the week of the 16th of March? That's when a lot of clubs started closing across Europe, across the US, and so on. China, of course, has started closing back down in January. So, I mean, it was late January when the first clubs started closing across China. URSA, in terms of direct advocacy, in terms of direct lobbying, is primarily in the US, but also to our federations and partners like Christophe, who you're going to hear from in a minute, we support those federations, those partners across the world as well. So mention a couple of things that have actually happened directly in the US, because those lessons can be applied not just in the US, but can be applied globally as well. So URSA really started a whole campaign to support clubs and federations in trying to get governments to reopen clubs safely. So initially that work really was trying to stop clubs closing, but literally over the space of a week, we found clubs rapidly closing around the world. I think of countries even like the UK and then to Australia, where the countries and the clubs were saying, no, it's not going to come here. We're not going to close. Unfortunately, COVID-19 hit everybody very, very rapidly in most countries around the world. So what URSA started doing really was communicating out in terms of governments, in terms of clubs, and providing a lot of support there. In the US specifically, as you asked that question, was it was actually arranging calls with industry leaders and lobbyists. It was grassroots campaigns really to try and protect the industry. And there's a number of things then were done, because one is once clubs and any business start closing, there's a need to sustain them financially. So how do you keep paying your staff? How do you keep the business viable, the mortgages, the rent, and everything else? So part of the lobbying, if you like, advocacy was to try and get stimulus packages in. So in the US, I mean, I'm sure most people have seen the news, there was initial packages up to $2 trillion. Sounds like huge amounts of money, but with the size of the US, not a huge amount of that actually reached the fitness industry. There was also anomalies in that as well, where it was helping some small businesses, wasn't actually helping the bigger businesses. And sometimes it's this false illusion that just because you're a big company means you've lots of money. Yes, some of them do, but not all of them. Some of them were already working on very tight margins, maybe only survived for a couple of weeks while they still paid staff. So most staff were actually furloughed or laid off temporarily within the first week, 2 weeks. Some companies have managed to pay staff for longer. So URSA has continued to lobby. And in the US, without going into details, but in the US, it's, I suppose, quite a bureaucratic model where you have to get congressmen and senators to basically support bills that you can try and push through for stimulus packages to really help the industry. So URSA has been quite successful in getting a number of those things through, and is still continuing, because we're by no means at the end of the need in terms of the stimulus packages. And alongside that then, so one is the financial side, two is to try and help clubs reopen safely. So we have two big industry leaders who are URSA members, supporters, who've actually been appointed to the White House Business Group by the president, and that is in terms of trying to help businesses reopen. There's a lot of course, probably criticism as well of businesses and clubs trying to reopen before it's safe to do so. But our mantra is very much, yes, to reopen as quickly as possible, but only when it's as safe as is practically possible. So that's just some of the things to mention. I know we'll cover some more as we go through the morning.
Thank you, Killian. Thank you. Christophe, you are the president of the French Fitness Federation. Please tell us a little bit in the light of what Killian has said that URSA has been doing with the federal authorities in the US, but also worldwide. What have you been working, what have you been doing with the French Fitness Federation, and what are the directives of the Ministry of Sports?
Hello, everyone from the south of France, from Aix-en-Provence. Yes, the French Fitness Federation is also a member of URSA. In fact, it's a representative of URSA in France, and Killian and I, we are in the European board, so we are very aware, even if it's URSA, it's starting in the US from the beginning. Now it's a worldwide organization. And I was in touch with Florian Cartou, that Jean-Guy, you know, because he lives in Brussels like you. And we need to know. We need to know what our colleagues from the different countries are doing. Yesterday, I was in touch with my colleague Philip Mills from New Zealand, and he told me that they have done a big lobby in front of the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and the club in New Zealand was ready to open for July, and finally proving that sports is the best medicine for immunity and for making people in the best condition to resist to the virus. And due to that, and to this lobbying, the fitness club in New Zealand are open tomorrow on Thursday. So in France, with our contact also with the National Fitness Federation and the professional syndicate of the fitness clubs, we have a meeting almost every week. So one of our representatives, Laurent Martini, is going every Friday to the Ministry of Sports, and every Tuesday, the different representatives from culture, from sports, from hospitality, from travel, they all together with the Ministry of Sport, Ministry of Finance, there is 6 ministers, and everybody, I tell you that everybody is in some way a little bit competing, because they all want to say that people need to meet together in bar and restaurant. The other one say, oh, people need to go on vacation. The other one say, oh, people need to do sports. So it's little bit competing between the different organizations who represent different industry. So in France, the reality is that France is the lockdown have stopped since last Monday. So since last Monday, the 3/4 of France is free to go out, and many shops are open. Many shops are open, but not all. For example, bar and restaurants, cinema, all that things are closed. Fitness clubs are closed, except the one who could practice outside. So a lot of CrossFit and little studio and personal training studio, they are opening since last Monday to do some activities outdoor, and it seems to be quite nice. Like Killian said, we all try to lobby for an opening as soon as possible. We know that we will not open in the past condition. We have to know that. We have to pay attention to do it as close as we can from the sanitary condition, but we need to open. Why I say that? That more we keep it longer and more we will be away from the opening, we will have the same things when we open. So if we open now, or if we open like we think in France, the 2nd of June, it will be difficult. People will have to come by certain number every hour. They have to take some rendezvous. They have to do some differentiation and distanciation between people. But if they open the 1st of July at the place of the 1st of June, it will be exactly the same. And the time will go on our favor. I mean that I talked last Tuesday, a week ago, with my colleague from China. So the mainly province in China are already open. And they told me that because like you know, Jean-Guy, I'm also the representative for Les Mills for the south of Europe and Africa. So we with Les Mills in China, they have demonstrate last weekend. They have do a body combat class with 400 people outside to show that people need to do some activities and need to be as sports that possible. And they say something that in the beginning, when they do a group exercise in fitness club, people are paying a lot of attention, and they say, okay, we need to do activities with a mask. And in fact, at the end, they understand that it's impossible to wear a mask. So, you know, we need like we discussed before this conference with you guys. I think, unfortunately, we will have to live with this virus for quite a long time. So it means that life need to goes on. Life will goes on differently. But if we completely stop our business, if we completely stop the way we live, we're not going to die by the virus. We will going to die by some other things around us. One big professor explained here in Marseille that France have 25,000 died in 3 months. But he's saying the same time, less people die by car accident, less people die by cancer, less people die by heart attack. And the guys say that at the end of 2020, the curve of dying will be exactly the same. So he said more people will die for the virus reason, but less people die for some other reason. So he said, and we didn't stop the country. For 150,000 people die by cancer per year in France. 130,000 people die by heart attack, and they didn't lock down a total country.
I think, so, Christophe, if I can interrupt, I think this is excellent. I think you made a very interesting point, which is lost from the spa and beauty industry.
Yeah, I do.
You know, you made a very interesting point, because you said that all the industries in France, when you lobby government, are competing. And I think the fact that your industry and you and your colleagues are going to lobby government and probably seeing a different person every week, but the fact is you're lobbying. And I think certainly in the UK, I'm not convinced that we are doing enough to lobby on behalf of spa, beauty and wellness. And I think in many societies, whoever shouts loud enough might be heard. And I think at least you're shouting and making the point, which is a good learning for our industry.
Yes, you're absolutely right. What Philip Mills told me 2 days ago, and he sent me all the background they have done, because it's not only lobby, it's to prove by paper and making things as better as they can, to show to the government that not only sports activity, but not only that, also spa and hospitality are necessary for the normal life of people. And more you have a big voice, more people are listening to you. Yeah, and for example, just to give a small example, the travel company and the airlines company, they make a report that if they are reimbursing now all the people who already purchase a trip or a journey or I don't know, a week of vacation, if they have to reimburse them now, they're going to be bankrupt. So the government, they let them proposing to have a credit for 18 months, and only after 18 months, if people do not choose any other travel, they will have to be reimbursed. So when we knew that, the sports and the culture, they go to the government and they say, we want the same thing that you give to the travel agency, because a lot of people have a membership. For example, you know, like the football, Paris Saint-Germain, people pay a membership to go to the match for a year long, but there is no match since 2.5 months. So so now the culture and the sport, they have the same condition that made the travel agent. But if the travel agent didn't get this lobby first, maybe we will not have it. So it's very important to look what the other industry get from the government, to say, okay, hey, we're here, we want the same thing.
Yeah, no, true.
Important. Agreed. Before we move on to the next question, I would just like to point out that James Blower, representing Matrix, was supposed to join us. Unfortunately, he could not at the very last minute, but he did send a few elements, and I know he's following this session through his phone in a mobile way, and he just sent a few very interesting information and links on what Matrix has been doing these past months, because while their customer facilities were closed, Matrix teams have been working extremely hard on the content to help them stay engaged with their members. And they have created what they call the Matrix Total Solution Support, with a landing page that has a collection of resources, insights, tools for facility owners, managers, trainers, and also the end users. It's not just B2B, it's also with the end users. There is specific content that is including the Matrix community app. There's an activation kit, and a cleaning and disinfecting guidance, a free Matrix master trainer workouts, and relevant articles. So I'll be going through a little bit of those elements, but you can definitely click on the link, download. And if you want to be in contact with James, although he cannot be here with the video with us, he can definitely answer to your questions directly on the chat box. And also from Matrix in Poland, from Warsaw, we have Rafał. So Rafał can also give you information. Thank you so very much. Back to you, Mark.
Oh, by the way, I should say, just to embarrass James, he hates me saying this, but he's one of the most decent guys in this sector, servicing the spa and wellness industry. He really is a lovely bloke. So that will embarrass him nicely. Christophe, I think you've been hosting a lot of webinars these past few months, and you have a lot of platforms, and you're particularly helping hotel managers. What have you been up to? What can you share that you've developed from the hotel manager point of view?
Yeah, in fact, what we do understand the recent time, and this is where Jean-Guy and myself we start to know each other. Well, I was invited a year and a half ago to the global, how did they call, Global Wellness Summit, Jean-Guy?
Absolutely, we met in Italy at the summit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do understand some people that like Tony the lead in Australia, who is both in the spa industry and the fitness industry. They tell some people like me, like Lynn Brick, like Emma Barry, you should come to this conference to see that, in fact, the spa industry, the hospitality industry, and the fitness industry and the tourism industry, they all are linked. And in fact, we do. I really understand that since I've been there. And we used to work with some company like Vacation Club, like in France, Club Med, Bellambra, Marmara, TUI, but it was just a very small relationship. Since, and also thanks to Aldina Duarte Ramos, we have been in touch with also the Accor Group, and we launched some the Pullman chain, which is a luxury chain of Accor Group, started to do some business with us in France, but also in the UK with Les Mills. And we do understand that what we are doing for the fitness club, in some way, we could do it also for vacation club and for hotel. So what we started that with the company that I represent, Les Mills, we have a platform named Les Mills On Demand that we develop in 80 countries, that the people from the fitness club, we have 25,000 fitness club in the world with Les Mills, 2,500 under Les Missions Remède that I represent. And when the countries was locked down, we proposed the Les Mills On Demand to all the end users for free until end of June. And when we did that, we say, after a while, we say, okay, but what about the people who usually go to Club Med, where we usually go to Bellambra, which is the biggest vacation club in France with 58 villages. And so we started to propose that to all our customers. So now the people who used to go on vacation to Club Med or Bellambra, or also the Pullman, they benefit from having the Les Mills On Demand platform for free. So it's more than 1,000 exercise, from yoga to Pilates to high intensity to body pump to cycling for the one who have some cycle at home. So the good news that usually the average people who train at home is 8% in France. During the crisis, it grew to 53%. So 53% of the French population have been trained at least 1 or 2 times at home since the confinement. So it's a big victory. So what we do hope that when the club will open, they will continue to work out at home in the same time. And I remember a survey made in 2018 by URSA, who says that 82% of the people who train at home are already member in fitness club. It means that, because some people scared, some French club owner, they call me, say, Christophe, okay, you advertise a lot of training at home. Okay, we do understand that. But did you scare that these people who used to train at home will never maybe come back to our clubs? This is wrong. People who train at home are training at home because they are not now other solution. I give this example in some of my conference. You know, my daughter Justine, she's a journalist. She has his own company with her husband. She has 2 kids, and she's born in a fitness club. When Justine born in 1st February 1984, my wife and I, we already have our first club in Paris, Vital, Place Beaubourg. We created in 1983. So she's very fitness oriented. But she told me the other day, she told me, Dad, to be honest, with all my busy life, I could join a club twice a week at max. So the other time, I train at home. I do some yoga. I do some high intensity. I do some bike sometimes. So what I mean that it's like for everyone, you know, when people have the good condition to train at home, it doesn't mean that they will not go back to the club when the club will be open.
They're a source. If it's gone from 8% to 53% or whatever the jump, there's a source of new members for you, isn't there?
Yes, this is what we think. We will not grab all of them. We will not grab all of them because you know that, and we have now some number who show that the curves go very fast in the beginning, but now after the curve reach a plateau, and now it's going down a little bit. People are getting a little bit more lazy. People are getting a little bit. I know they are much little bit boring now. So this is why we need to open again as soon as possible.
Christophe, I will want to bring Killian in a second, but just how would you? So you've got these at-home audiences who've decided they've got to do something to get off their armchair, even if they've got a family. How have you been? Is your group reaching out to these people? How are you reaching out to these people very quickly to try and engage them better?
Yeah, in fact, we have two populations. The population that we are talking to very often are the population who are in fitness club. So what we have done first, the first thing we have done beginning of April, we are trying to encourage the club to reach the platform Les Mills on demand. So the affiliation have been done through their club and not direct to consumer. Now we're starting to work direct to consumer since beginning of May. But in the first week, 500 clubs join our platform. So the average member per club is 1,500. So we multiply 500 club by 1,500. So we first reach thousands of people who we've been on the platform. So we try to not, and also because we want to keep the privacy, we try to not talk directly to consumer. We try to talk to our club members and also because the club member, they don't really want us to talk direct to consumers because they want to keep their member active. So we want to be loyal, and so the main contact is through the club, but we give a lot of file, a lot of marketing tools, because like I said, the motivation go up very fast in the beginning, then reach a plateau, and now starting to decline. So we try to motivate also our club members to not let their arm down, but motivate their member to practice.
Thank you. Killian, what has Ursa been up to? You've been running lots of webinars, I believe.
Yeah, if I mentioned webinars briefly, because then I think some of the points Christophe made, I'd like to follow up on. So yeah, we have a whole pile of webinars. We've also moved, in addition, to do recorded videos. So people look at things differently. Some people like going into videos, some people like reading things. So we're trying to put things out lots of different ways. So I actually put a link up there in the chat if anyone hasn't seen it. Very simply, it's ursa.org/coronavirus. So there's a whole range of resources in there which are free for everybody. So usually the model with Ursa has been, most of the resources are reserved for members only. So we tried within this environment to really open up a lot of resources free. So webinars are part of that, but lots of other media there as well. Ursa's primarily, it is an industry body. It is targeted to help the clubs and our suppliers. But what we've actually done is, I also put up there in the chat, is helpclubs.com. It's an existing site that does advertise Ursa member clubs. But what we've done is actually rebranded that, revamped it. And one of the tabs you'll see there is free online resources. Free online workouts is actually called. We actually set that up at the request of the World Health Organization because they were very concerned of people being stuck at home. In some cases, like in Spain, for instance, children were not even allowed outside their front door. So they were very concerned. And we said, well, look, let's see what we can do. So we did a call out to our club chains and to our suppliers to basically say, well, look, what resources have you got that you're willing to open up totally free? Christophe's already mentioned one. Of course, we have them up there, is Les Mills. And with James Blower on there, of course, I have to mention Matrix as well. So both of those brands are up there on healthclubs.com. We have a number of other global brands like Anytime Fitness, Gold's Gym, and a number of big chains in the US as well. So those resources are all there free of charge to basically help people work out at home while they're not in the clubs. Taking Christophe's point of trying to keep it within club environment, is we try to do that by basically putting up the club chain's own resources. So, we've got Crunch up there, UFC, which is another global brand as well. ACE, American Council of Exercise, which is all over the world. One I have to mention as well, because there's another aspect to this, is UFIT, which is a initiative that the UNESCO Chair Inclusive Fitness and Sports set up a few years back. It's now run in conjunction with URSA. The reason I mention it within coronavirus, within the COVID-19 environment is, as Christophe said, we want to get people back into the clubs as soon as possible, as safely as possible. But there's lots of people that are more vulnerable. There's people with different disabilities that may not be able to come back as soon as other people because they are more prone to catching viruses. So UFIT is one initiative that we have up there with online resources. What we will be encouraging clubs to do as they reopen is to look at the mix of face-to-face and digital, because some of these people will not be able to come back to clubs initially. So by working with URSA, working with UFIT, we can help to provide some of those online resources to keep people in as members, and in fact, to get more people, because clubs generally are capturing up to maybe 20% of the market. We know there's a huge market out there. There's another 80% of people not members of clubs. And a lot of those people actually have different, they have different needs. They have different disabilities. And when we're talking about disabilities, we are talking about mental health issues as well, which we know during COVID-19 is getting more and more of an issue as well as people with those underlying conditions. So what we're trying to do with URSA is really from the digital side, from the online side, is to help support clubs and their members and to get more members into the clubs as well. So I think that, that is all very important. To pick up another point that Christophe made there in terms of people coming back, yes, there is a fear factor. And you mentioned China. We've got Katic Wellness, which is one of our big club chains in Shenzhen region in China. They reopened the middle of March. They have actually been able to stay open, which is fantastic. They started off with only about 15% of the members coming back. I heard last night that they have now reached between 75 and 90% of the members are now back. So the difference in percentages because they have a lot of clubs. So in some clubs it's 75, the other end is up to 90%. That is fantastic news. So people are really starting to come back. It's taken them a while, it's nearly 2 months, but I mean, you can say only 2 months because we're talking about, the virus being with us for a long time. It could be 12 to 18 months before we have widespread vaccination. So it is trying to adapt between face-to-face, digital, all the different things we need to do.
Thank you. Over to you, Jean-Guy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Killian, for all this information. Killian, you mentioned something really important. Yes, let's reopen as soon, but as safely as possible. And in mind, I have all the attendees of this program live right now with us on Zoom, or that who will be watching this program in the thousands on the 10 platforms that we have multicasting this event. Many of them are hotel general managers, fitness managers also of hotels and resorts, and they're thinking of how do I clean? How do I disinfect my fitness equipment to make it safe? Before I pass it back to you, Killian, because you just published an article this week, and maybe you can give us a few sneak peeks, maybe 2 or 3 really salient points on that. I'd like to point out, and I'm going to put a link on the chat box for those following, that matrix in the facility reopening guide that they've published is clearly underlining and explaining the difference between cleaning and disinfecting. And I'm not going to go into the details because the document is downloadable, but I'm just going to post a few informations about electrostatic spraying and fogging and what are the differences. But as I post this, back to you, Killian, so that you can explain some of the highlights of the article that's going to be published by URSA this week.
Well, I can actually give good news. The article has been published. So it was actually published last night. So again, the link I actually put in the chat earlier, the ursa.org/coronavirus, the very first, I think it's the very first article that's actually on there live now, is actually called, let me get the name right, it's the very first one, Cleaning, Disinfecting and Sanitizing Your Gym During COVID-19. And, you know, often we talk about semantics, you know, what we're talking about with gym. This is about the whole fitness health club. A lot of these aspects will also apply to spa and wellness. So, you know, there's obviously a lot of crossover and similarities between them. So, yeah, we have put up the definitions because people are getting a little bit confused in terms of the difference between cleaning, between disinfecting, and between sanitizing. And you know, I think in gyms in particular, when I'm talking about gym, I'm talking about the equipment space, because people often talk about the health club being a gym or the sport and leisure center. The gym, when I'm talking about, is with your cardiovascular equipment, your resistance, your free weights. It is that physical gym area. I think we're used to, in most clubs, where people are used to wiping down machines before use, usually after use, using some type of antibacterial spray. Now, the question I put is, do we actually know, are they actually good sprays? Have they got at least 60, 70% alcohol base, for instance? So it's that type of question, that types of detail that we actually have to look at. One of the onus on clubs now is to actually ensure that the club ensure the equipment is actually clean, it's disinfected before use and after use. Now, there's debate around that. You can say, okay, well, surely the individual and the users have that responsibility to do it. But overall, particularly in this environment, I think the clubs actually have to make that extra effort to actually make sure it is actually cleaned and sanitized. Coming back to the bigger question of the overall safety. So answering your question, John Gee, in terms of helping clubs to be as safe as is practically possible. And I personally use that phrase. That's the phrase that URSA is actually using. We're not saying to open when they're safe, because I don't think you can ever say any business is 100% safe. You know, we walk out in the street, you know, it's not 100% safe, no matter what conditions, safety measures are there. So we can never, ever say 100% safe. It's as safe as practically possible. What that means in reality is that clubs are putting as many measures in place as possible. And without going into details now, there's lots of articles there, but just mentioning some of the key things. One would be, before anybody even comes to a spa, before anybody comes to a club, is to actually make sure they don't have any of the symptoms of COVID-19 and not to come anywhere near. That applies to staff, it applies to customers, it applies to members. So before you come anywhere near the club. Secondly, is to have a booking system to make everything as touchless as possible. So that might mean putting in new equipment, you know, doing away with cash payments. So there's a lot of types of things that are already happening out there with supermarkets, like supermarkets never closed. So if you actually have a look at some of the things that have been happening in supermarkets, cashiers, checkout operators now have perspex screens up. They're the types of things that need to go into clubs to protect the staff. One thing that's evolved really fairly recently over the last few weeks is we also have clubs in China and in Hong Kong and other Asian countries that now actually have either perspex screens or plastic dividers in between the gym equipment. Now, it sounds like a very obvious solution, but it's only been thought of in the last few weeks. Pure Gym, actually, who operate over a number of countries, sorry, Pure International, I should say, it's not Pure Gym, it's Pure International, operate under a number of brands that are based out of Hong Kong. They operate in China, they operate in Singapore, and a couple other places. What they've done is they've actually designed their own perspex screens, and they've actually outsourced the manufacture of them. And what they basically do is to protect people in between each of the pieces of equipment, whether it's treadmills, bikes, cross trainers. That means that a gym potentially does not have to remove any of their equipment, because up to now, everybody's saying, well, we have to remove half our equipment. How can we be financially viable? How can we operate? Think of the supermarkets. dividers, perspex screens, curtains. I saw a photo from a restaurant actually just reopening in Ohio in the US the other day. They've actually put shower curtains between their different tables. So, so there's actually a number of solutions that are quite practical, reasonably cheap, not too expensive, that clubs and spas can actually put in place to protect their staff, to protect their customers, protect their members. So what we're saying is, before you open, before you even think about opening, is look at all the different types of measures that need to be put in place. Yes, it is going to cost money to do it. Yes, you do need to put procedures in place. We know some clubs have done procedure manuals up to 300 pages, but that's going through the full operating procedures, the emergency procedures. Unfortunately, that is necessary, but it then means you can open and you can start to get up back to near, you're not going to get to full capacity because certain services, certain things you may not be able to do in the meantime, or you may have to reduce. And for instance, things like exercise classes, you're not going to be able to have 30, 40, 50 people all arriving at once. There will have to be almost that, I'll use the analogy of supermarkets again. There'll have to be that kind of supermarket type queuing system where you have the physical distance between people. The people who are going to be at the back of the room will go in first, they will leave last. You'll have to have spaces marked out in some form, whether it's using mats or tape or something. So it's all those types of measures that need to be really planned through. So a lot of the resources I mentioned, we've continually, every day from URSA, we've new articles, new information that's going up there. There is also some good examples. I mean, I mentioned one, which is not in the public domain yet, about cleaning and disinfecting of health club facilities. It's actually been done by Newtown Athletic Club in Pennsylvania. And the owner, Jim Worthington, has a unique access in the US in that he's actually on the President's Council on Fitness, Sport and Nutrition. And he has direct access to US Surgeon General and through him to CDC. So he's actually just had a 5-page document, not 200. He's had a 5-page document that's actually just been passed through the US Surgeon General and the CDC for comments and clarity. So that's how the document, we can feel that, okay, it hasn't been endorsed. No government's going to actually endorse something like that, but at least it's been through them and they feel it's a good document. We're also at the moment working on guidance globally from URSA, which is going to be based on the best science and World Health Organization guidance. So we have a group working on that at the moment. We hope that will be released within the next couple of weeks. It won't be the 300-page. It's not the cookbook, but what it will give is an overall framework, an overall guidance that will help clubs to look at what measures they need to consider based on the best WHO guidance. The one thing we will stress with all of this call to reopen is the national and local legislation guidelines, of course, have to take precedence. So no matter what URSA says, no matter what the WHO say, if there's guidelines or restrictions that are in locally, of course, they always have to take precedence.
Thank you, Killian. Thank you. Before I pass it back to Mark, just a quick sneak preview of what we're going to talk about tomorrow at 3 p.m. with the United Nations Global Sustainability Index Institute Foundation. And there's another way also of disinfecting, which is based on hypochlorous acid, also known as HOCl. And I'm going to post a link to a company that's doing that. And they are already delivering to lots of fitness clubs, hotels, and restaurants in the US. So I'll post that message right now from biobuffs.com. And Mark, back to you.
I'm actually going to mess around with the order. I'm seeing that time is escaping us as often happens. What I'm asking both panelists, I suppose back to you, Killian, again, is, we've touched on this. Are you in favor, and what's your members take of allowing of having clubs open as soon as local regulations allowed it? What's your point with the risk of demand picking up slowly, and that can endanger people's financial situations? Killian, you first, then you, Christophe.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of mixed views around this from club operators. We have some that are actually saying they do not want to open till they can open fully and things are back to normal. The comment, I think I can make on that is, yes, that would be great in an ideal world, but we know from all WHO, CDC, all the other advice out there is SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus, is going to be with us for at least another 12 to 18 months before there's a vaccine widely available. So the risk of infection, of getting COVID-19 from the virus, is going to be with us for quite some time. So for a club to be able to reopen absolutely 100% normal, it's going to be a long, long time. So what we're advising is for clubs to open when it's safe to do so. So taking your question, Mark, are we advising they should open when government say so? Not necessarily. We're saying, yes, that's the first stage when you can be allowed to open, but you need to reopen safely. So all the things I was saying there a few minutes ago is taking all of them into account before the club would actually reopen. Because what you don't want to happen is an incident of COVID-19 within the club or the club to be held liable in any way. So it's to put in all those safe practices to make sure that the liability is not going to be back. They're not going to have to close again after reopening. And so it is balancing that financial side versus safety and putting all those measures into place.
Thank you, Christophe. What's your take?
Yeah, I fully agree with my friend Killian. I think we have the club operator and also the suppliers, everyone who works in the fitness industry and also in the spa industry, hospitality industry. We need to have a very positive face. I just want to give you one example I received 2 days ago from my friend Jeff Dyer, is a member of URSA. I'm sure Killian knows him very well. He said that we have been open for 8 days now in Atlanta. Our 5 Atlanta's club continue to have a high daily sales volume, exceeding norms for this time of the year by about 50%. It means that for the first 8 days of opening in May, we are averaging 18 new joining members per club per day. So it's 742 new members who joined the first week of May in Atlanta after 1.5 months of lockdown. And he said, in this meantime, we have 511 cancellation, but it means that at the end, in 1 week, we have a positive things. And he says, up to now, 36% of our members are going to the club. So after what we say in China, we say that in the US. So the members, the people who like to work out, are very willing to come back. And like Killian say, we will have to live with the virus at least since we find a vaccine. So people say 12 or 18 months. So we need to encourage people. I'm not a stupid person who say, okay, this is not existing, you have no risk. But the risk of getting the virus and dying for sports people is very, very low. You could die from many other things, like the Professor Didier Raoult said in Marseille recently. So there is a lot of positive aspect. Recently, like I said in the beginning of this seminar, some French club opened for the outdoor activity. They need to have group of 10 people at max. And a friend of mine who opened last Monday said to me, for the first day, I put 5 meetings of 10 groups, for five group of 10. They say in 1 hour, all the group was fully booked. And I have to add more people. So it means that the people are conscious about the risk of getting the virus, but they also wanted to exercise because they know it's good for their body. And also the very positive sign. I say that many people try for the first time to work out at home. I tell you the truth, I never work out at home because I have a club in our campus where we are in Aix-en-Provence with 4 fitness rooms. So we work out in the office. And during this time, I take the experience with some Les Mills barbell and some bikes to work out at home. And I find that it's very positive. So what do I mean with that? That some people, like Mark, you observe that some people will also start to exercise during this lockdown. And I'm sure that not 100% of them, but let's say 50% of them, they will use to work out on a regular basis. And these people who come back to club. And this is what Jeff Dyer is saying in Atlanta and the girl is saying in China. So also some teachers, some fitness instructor, they come back to me because we have done a big conference with 2,000 members in Zoom 2 weeks ago. And one of the girls said to me, I was against virtual classes in club because I thought it was competing against me and against live classes. And I do understand now, doing virtual class myself in my house for my members, that in fact virtual is a good complement. And this is what we are installing now in the Pullman Hotel. We are installing virtual room because we know that equipment is good and it's a part of the fitness things and it's a part of the fitness room in the hotel. But it's do not talk to people like classes. And it's very difficult, very complicated for some hotel to have some coaches who could give live classes. So with the virtual classes and with the fact that now people have been more using digital in their day-to-day life, the virtual classes on a big screen with a good sound system are really, really good. And yesterday I have the conversation with the Pullman in Bercy, and they say that people love to exercise now in front of a big screen like a cinema. And it says it's much more motivating that, I'm sorry for my tricks, it's much more motivating that just sit down in a bike with nothing on it, just a small screen, or just do some running. So this is some bad things, but this is some new things who people will start to use, and they will be much better for the fitness in the future.
Just, Christophe, just to follow up on the core point, though, there are lots of, from the spa perspective and hotels, you hear some people saying, well, I'm not opening because unless I can get X% operation, it doesn't work. But am I right in saying that you are of the opinion of we've got to start and it will build in general once it's safe? Is that we've got to open an industry because that in itself will create a demand? Is that your view?
Yeah, it's my view. You know, it's very simple. If you're any kind of shop is closed, nobody will come. You know that when people are thinking, oh, I'm not going to open until the virus is over or until we have all the good safety and sanitary condition. But God, you will never open if you think about that. And if you think that your member will trust you more if you open in 3 months from now, I mean, it's the worst version of what you have to think. You have, okay, like Killian said, you have to open in good sanitary and safety condition. But as soon as you open, you will learn from that. If you wait for opening, you delay your learning, because you have to work out in a new world. The world of tomorrow will not be like yesterday. So you have to learn from a new expertise, and the best to learn is to practice. Everybody knows. So as soon as you delay your opening, you will delay your learning and your experience.
Thank you, Christophe. Thank you. Let me just add an important point, because there's so much information shared right now on the chat box of Zoom. It's great. There are so many links, so many insights coming from the attendees. I would like to encourage any of you attending this session right now on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever platform you're using, just go to the professional beauty page, Facebook page of closest to your region. Could be UK, could be South Africa, India, GCC, of course. go on that page and you can find a link to register, and then you can join this conversation on Zoom and you can get all this information. Also for you on Zoom right now with us, registered, you will find at the bottom page of the chat box, next to names of people you can send a message to, you will find a little square box with 3 buttons in it. And if you click on it, it says save the conversation. And if you do that, you can save immediately, instantly, all of the information, all of the links, all of the advices that you have seen. I'm just going to name 2 for those of you listening remotely and not being on Zoom. James Blower, Matrix, is saying that a lot of clubs are currently implementing a booking system to control the flow of the gym users. And for instance, members will book a time slot and the type of exercise they want. Therefore, they just show up on time, and the team has already completely cleaned, sanitized, sterilized the station. So you just come. It's almost like privatizing the equipment that you want. And also, I'd like to quote Patrick Mercaton, marketing director of Planet Fitness Group, who is saying that there are so many commenting on Christophe, so many virtual classes, so many ways of practicing, and especially with the at home, on travel, in club, everything is mixing. So lots of information from Patrick coming on the chat box and lots from James also. Please continue. I believe we have maybe 10, 15 more minutes before we have to close. So let's continue to hear your insights on the Zoom chat box and from our speakers. Thank you. Back to you, Mark.
So interesting, and I'm just looking at. I'd like to explore, if you don't mind, again and redig this subject in terms of the financials. You know, we've got to start in some cases. Social distancing is forcing some businesses to open perhaps at 50%, 50% capacity. Is this sustainable? Are you raising prices? If so, by what percentage? How are you going to cope with potentially less capacity? Christophe first.
Yeah, I have a seminar 2 days ago with some of with one of the syndicate. We've covered mostly the premium club. So it was a lot of club in Paris, like Club Med Gym, like Reebok's stores and shops and things like that. And these people, you know, they have such a big rent in Paris. They are willing to postpone as much as they can the opening, because they do not want to open with 20% of the capacity, and it's understandable. So more your lease and your rent is high, and with a big number of employees, because you are a premium club, it will be much more difficult to open if you are not in full capacity, and this is a little bit tricky for the premium club, and I do think that more you have employee to care with, more the rent is high, more your day-to-day charges are high. It will be very difficult if you are not having at least 50% of your total capacity to open. Actually, some people say we need to have 1 meter. So it's 1 people per 4 square meters. Some people say 1 people by 5 square meters. The French Ministry of Sport wanted in the beginning 1 people per 10 square meters, which is impossible to make for because we are business company at the end. We make money in getting people in shape. So it, like you say, it's a balance between, okay, yes, we want to open, but we want to open in a good financial condition. I agree with you.
By the way, do you is realistic? Is that something that you think your clubs can manage?
Could you repeat again? I didn't understand.
So you mentioned the distancing, so you have one person, or the number of people per meter or square meters. In addition, the French government wanted initially one for every 10 meters, and now it's down to a 4 meter. What do you think? What do you think is realistic to balance the health and the financial reality and the practicality of getting people together?
Yeah, if I come back from what Jane, the CEO of Les Mis China, told me last Tuesday, she said, in the reality, it will not happen like this. In fact, in the beginning, when they opened, China opened weeks ago already, and she said, okay, people are paying very attention for the equipment. They separate the equipment. Sometimes they put less equipment in the room, so they have to stock some equipment in the part of the room. And they say, okay, it's working quite well. And for the group fitness, she say, in the beginning, people are paying very attention, and after the reality to doing sports together is coming back. And she say the people was wearing masks in doing exercise, and she says something very important, that, for example, the Chinese government absolutely wanted that people running in the street wearing masks, and they are free death by asphyxia. So now they are saying no mask for running. Like I say, tomorrow we will have, and like Killian said, tomorrow we will have to live with this virus for, let's say, 12 to 18 months. I copy what my friend's saying. So we will have to still live with that. Okay, we live, like we said, people, I remember that when the AIDS starts 20 years ago, people are very scared. Then after, people have to pay attention of the AIDS and live with that. For example, when they have a sexual act, they have to wear a condom. So and now we didn't talk about that because it's in our life. So maybe we will have to live with the virus for a long time, and we will still have to work out. We will have still to go to the hotel. We will have still take a plane or take a train. Yesterday, I've been to Paris for the first time since 2 months, and I take the train, and nothing happened. I wear my mask and I go to the train station. Then after, I take a Uber in Paris, and I have my 2 meetings, and I come back in Aix-en-Provence yesterday night. And I say, fuck, it was a normal day.
Thank you, Christophe. I think it was a bit more complicated in the underground and subway. You were lucky to take an Uber and get good traffic.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
I do it on purpose.
That's right. And we will leave the discussion about condoms for another session. We just have a few minutes to wrap it up. But thank you so much for mentioning it. Vive la France.
I was a bit too enthusiastic, but I say, okay, guys, we need to be positive. We need to. I'm not scaring. I tell you the truth. I'm not scaring. I'm in good shape. I eat vegetables. I take some vitamin C. So I even myself, I don't stay like this. And yeah.
No, absolutely. We have a few minutes before Mark Moloney wraps up this session. Thank you so very much, all of you, for staying that long. There's one last question that I would really love to ask to Killian, because HRSA and UNESCO, and especially Catherine Carty, the UNESCO chair for inclusion, have launched a program about YouFit, and that's to make fitness clubs more inclusive, not just to open their doors when they reopen to people that are full capacity of their 2 legs, 2 arms, but also people that need exercise even more. Please, in a few minutes, could you tell us more about YouFit and how you would like to encourage, because there's lots of guidelines on this on HRSA website, lots of resource on how fitness clubs, but also hotels with fitness rooms can be more inclusive. Thank you.
Thanks, John-Guy. Yes, in brief, because I could talk about this all day, so we'll try and just give a brief overview. So the UNESCO chair in sport and fitness and PE was set up a number of years ago, and the remit is basically a research chair with a lot of different initiatives. So one of the initiatives that was set up with funding from the European Commission was YouFit, which stands for Universal Fitness Innovation Transformation. In simple terms, it's focused on really trying to help fitness clubs. And one thing I always say in semantics, and a little bit I said at the beginning of this panel, was when we're talking about fitness, we're talking about all forms of physical activity. So anything that happens within a facility, indoors or outdoors, that's what we're talking about. So whether it's swimming, gym, sports, etc. The mantra of it really is to try and help clubs and owners and managers to really change the culture so that, even in terms of images, so getting away from, the six-pack men and the bikini-clad women, so getting away from that imagery, that it's not just for people who with disabilities or non-communicable diseases, but it's really to attract, that 80% of the market that clubs are really not attracting now. So there is a commercial marketing side for clubs as well, but it's doing the right thing. So we can attract in more people, as I say, with disabilities. One of the facts we put out, and I say facts inverted commas because nobody's disputed it yet, 98% of us in our lifetime will have a disability. It can be permanent, it can be temporary. And every time we say that, people think, yeah, well, actually, yeah, I've got this, or as a member of my family or friends or whatever, is, you think about it, you break a leg, you break an arm, you're temporarily disabled. You're not able to do everything as you normally would. So, we are talking about the full range of disabilities. Often people think about just somebody in a wheelchair. That's only one of hundreds of different types of disabilities. So it really is trying to change that culture. Not every club or every spa facility is going to be able to cater for people with all types of disabilities, but it's looking to try and really open the doors, open the minds. That's the big thing. It's really opening the minds. So we have a lot of tools and resources. We've online in terms of training, in terms of education, but it's really about starting with the owners and the managers to actually look at their programs, look at the services, look at their objectives in that. One of the things we've been doing the last 18 months is we're part of the World Health Organization Sports Sector Dialogue. And within that, one of the focuses we've done is actually focusing on UFit and inclusive fitness. We'd actually had planned at the URSA convention that was to take place in March in San Diego. We were actually going to launch the URSA Get Active for All campaign, which is tied in directly with UFit and supporting the goals of the WHO. We are going to do that. We have done some things quietly, but obviously with clubs closed and all the challenges there. So we are going to start doing some things that are non-COVID related, but will actually help clubs in terms of rethinking when they reopen. How can they actually get more people in that have not been attending clubs, helping more people with disabilities, which are another big group that are out there. One thing I said earlier, of course, is to bear in mind that some disabilities may be more vulnerable to the virus. So it may be looking at more digital and online resources. So we have to look now, we are looking now in terms of adapting some of it, because what we had planned to launch in San Diego, not all of that is applicable in terms of more things will need to be done virtually. And it really ties back into what Christoph was saying as well, is that, virtual as, I suppose, a complement or supplementing the services that clubs provide. So, we don't see it as replacement, but supplementing. And the people maybe that can't go back to a club for longer, it's helping them keep the connection to do exercise in the meantime until they get back into the club, or in fact, start in a club for the first time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, we have to bring the session to the end. I'm going to ask both of, be unfair. What would be the one piece of advice you would offer either fitness club operators or spa operators? What one thing should they take away from today? Killian first, and close with you, Christoph.
Hard to say one thing, but I suppose I've got to repeat something I said earlier, because I think it is the one big thing, is to open as soon as possible, but as safely as possible.
Thank you. Christoph?
Yeah, for sure that I wanted to leave this conversation with a positive aspect, that all the ones who already open are giving us a very positive feeling. of the opening. That's that in fact they more scared before that, and it's very often happen in any case. You scare about something, and when you do it, in fact, you think it's possible. So I just want to leave this a very positive attitude of that during a nightmare for every business and every life in the world. We need to keep going. And if I just want to also say that, because we are talking mostly to the spa industry, and Kilian and I were coming more from the fitness industry, even if we are cousins, it's not exactly the same business, that I think that the fitness industry have a lot of good things to bring to the spa and hospitality business. Because I remember that from the SciBEC conference in Malta in last November, we also have some people from the Holtec conference who say that in a recent survey, 49% of the business people are willing to find a good fitness center in the hotel they choose. So that time by time, the spa and the hospitality will be much more linked with the fitness industry. So the fitness industry have to give their best to make the best fitness condition for hospitality and spa businesses in the future.
Well, thank you. I think it's been an inspirational discussion. Jean-Guy de Gabriac, founder of the World Wellness Weekend, Kilian Fischer of URSA, Christoph Andersen of Planet Fitness. Thank you so much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, our next session is coming up soon in under an hour at 1300 British Summer Time. See you there. Gentlemen, again, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.